Welcome to episode 7.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Are you ready to plan your next vacation getaway? Then I recommend using 3D Travel Company. They are more powerful than pixie dust, more fantastic than flu powder, and they never charge a fee. Whether you're booking a Disney or Universal vacation, a relaxing cruise, or a luxury trip overseas, you'll experience concierge-level service unmatched by any agency. From the moment you submit a complimentary quote request or inquiry on their website at www.3dtravelcompany.com, you'll find out what it means to be pampered by the best in the business. That's 3, the letter D, travelcompany.com. And tell them Trenton sent you.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Today on the show, we have Mike Greco. He has done voices for shows like Superman the Animated Series as Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern.
Do I know you? The name's Sinestro. You have something I want. Give me the ring! There's one little problem. We've sort of become attached.
He also got to be a part of the team on Bleach, as he played the character Pesce.
This really stinks. I'm tired of just lying around doing nothing.
Mike has also played an assortment of characters on the show Naruto, but 2 specific characters he played were Iwashi Tatami and Minoji. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, and welcome to Who Did That Voice? I'm here with Mike Greco, our distinguished guest today. Mike, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to being on the show today. It's an honor.
Well, thanks. It's honor's mine. Anytime voice actors get recognition it's few and far between. So it's nice to be actually talking about yourself. So.
Well, absolutely, Mike. You know, one of the ways we like to get to know our guests is just to ask them to give us a little bit of an intro into who they are as a person and as a voice actor.
Well, there's nothing too complicated. I was born and raised in Chicago. I am Chicagoan through and through. I live in LA now. My dad was an actor. His name was Joe Greco. If you look him up on IMDb, he's got a nice list of credits. He did a lot of on-camera stuff. So I was kind of born into acting. He just made it look so much fun that eventually I just had to do it. I tried not to, but it was in the blood, I guess. So I dropped out of college. Don't recommend that, but it worked for me. But dropped out and just started acting and just started working. So it was great.
Well, that's amazing. So, what actually led you into the voiceover career? I mean, I guess because of the inspiration of your father mainly, or?
Yeah, that was a lot of it. He certainly helped a lot, and I was very lucky that I didn't have to search for an agent. I mean, my dad's agent became my agent, and they knew me since I was a kid. And right about when I was 18, 19 years old, I went to college for a little bit and couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, and then sort of decided, I said, well, I really like the entertainment industry. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and I started to go back to school for production because I thought it'd be behind the scenes because I wasn't an actor. That was my dad. That was my sister. It wasn't me. And eventually I just kind of fell into someone say, oh, you're funny. You should do this part on stage. I said, well, all right. They said, no, it's the sound designer. It's within the show. It's just a farce. So the sound designer, keeps screwing up, and that's you on stage. And man, the first time I got a laugh on stage, I was hooked. So that was it. I was like, well, I'm going to be an actor, I guess. So
That's an excellent story, man.
Yeah, so I quit and then I started improvising, and then I moved back from Los Angeles to Chicago, and performed at Improv Olympic for years, and trained at Second City, got an agent, and I walked into the voiceover department one day and literally just said, "Hey, what's this voiceover thing?" And she gave me a piece of copy and said, "You read this into that microphone." And I said, "Well, I can do that." And within a year, that's how I was making a living.
Wow, that is most excellent to hear, man.
Yeah.
So would you say voiceover is something that can be taught, or is it something that you kind of have to have an innate sense of as well? Or both?
I think with acting and performing and with voiceover, well, any acting really, it's you either have some kind of innate sense of how to do it or you don't. I don't think you can just teach it. If you have ability, you can hone your ability and become better. But if you're handed a piece of copy and they say, well, read that into the microphone, and you have no idea how to read it or how it's supposed to sound, you're never going to be a voiceover actor. If you have something, people can go, oh, wow, yeah, that's good. Okay, try it like this, try it like this. And then you just develop your skills and work. And that's just what happened to me. I was kind of in the right place at the right time. After I'd done a bunch of auditions and done a demo tape and gotten it out there, I went into audition for this really this strange little commercial for McDonald's. And it was a Japanese commercial that they had shot in Japan, and they were going to put an American voice on it. But there's a little boy that was playing with a cat. I don't remember what the spot was. And he was doing, and literally all they wanted was a voice to go, not yet. And that was it. So I went in, I auditioned for it, and it came down to me and another guy, and the other guy got it. But the director of that spot said, hey, can you come back tomorrow and audition for this other thing for McDonald's? I think you'd be great for it. I said, yeah, sure, whatever. So I called my agent and said, hey, I'm going back tomorrow. And they said, great. So I went in, I auditioned for it, came down to me and another guy again, and this time I got it. And I walked in, and they said, great. Okay, so we're going to need you for the next month. It's going to be, I said, month? What is this? And they said, oh, no, you're the voice of McDonald's now.
Oh, wow.
And I went, what?
Yeah.
And for the next 6 months, I was the guy, and it was incredible. And literally from that moment on, I've knock on wood, I've never stopped working. So,
well, that's an amazing story.
like I said, right place, right time. Half of this industry is luck, the other half is talent.
You're going in thinking you're going to do an or an
Yeah.
and you get a 6-month gig.
Yeah, like, here you go, congratulations. And it's been, Sam Sierra Matero, if you're out there listening to this for some reason, thank you. Never forgotten his name.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, I know every young kid probably imagines being a superhero at some point in time. How did you end up becoming involved with Superman the Animated Series and being cast as Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern?
That was amazing. I actually, because I was auditioning for, I think, Robin in Batman Beyond, and they were just kind of firing up casting for that show, which ran either started just after the Batman Superman adventures or during. So I auditioned for that and I didn't get it. But Andrea Romano, who was the casting director and director at the time of all that stuff for Warner Brothers, and Leslie Lemmer, who was her assistant and now a director, they just heard something and literally just gave me the part based on my audition for Robin.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, it was incredible. My agent called and said, hey, by the way, you have this part. And I went, I don't think I auditioned for that. And they said, shut up and go do it. Right, got it. And the incredible thing about big animation casts like that is they read it like a radio play. So every single actor that has even one line in that show is sitting behind a microphone in a semicircle, and you just read it top to bottom a couple of times, and they just record it. And it's probably the coolest gig in voiceover is a show like that. Whether it's a superhero or a Darkwing Duck or Phineas and Ferb or whatever, it's because everybody's just there in the room. And it just feels like you're doing a play, and it's so much fun. I will say the coolest part of it was after we recorded everything, then, of course, they animated after that. So I had to go back like 6 months or 8 months later after it was all animated and do some pickups and do ADR work. And the first bit of ADR, if you know what they do in ADR is they give you 3 beeps, doot, 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 and on the imaginary 4th beep, is when you're supposed to say your line or do the pickup or whatever you're supposed to do. So they said, okay, this first one is when, you first put on the ring, you, Kyle Rayner, you found the ring, you put it on, and then you are transformed into the Green Lantern. Like the suit comes on and the whole thing. And so we just need you to kind of react, in awe of or surprise of what's happening. I said, okay, that's fine. And I'm watching on this massive television screen, this film-sized screen of me talking as Kyle Rayner, and then the ring goes on, and I hear the doot doot doot, and I completely biffed it because I was so enthralled by myself turning into the Green Lantern that I completely missed my cue. And they go, Mike, do you want to? I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. That was just really cool. Yeah, do it again. So they did it again. I finally got it down. But it was so cool to just watch your voice coming out of this cartoon character and then suddenly transform into a superhero. It was by far the coolest thing.
I bet it was like a boyhood dream come true.
Totally, because I used to watch the Justice League cartoon when I was a kid, the old one, and the Green Lantern was one of my favorite characters on that show. So it was just really cool to be able to portray him. And unfortunately for me, it was only one episode. I think we recorded 2, but then they ended Batman Superman Adventures on what was the WB, I think. And then Cartoon Network picked up the Justice League, but by then they had recast everybody and just went with their kind of old cast. And Phil Lamar, the great Phil Lamar, got the Green Lantern. So,
well, at least you got that opportunity to
I
play.
did one.
To play a boyhood character that you loved so much, following as a kid. That's amazing.
It was really cool. It was really cool.
Well, I also know that you've been a part of the Bleach team, the show Bleach, and I know you played a character on there called Pesce Guwachi. And how did that all come about?
Pesce was so much fun. He actually, my very good friend Jeff Nimoy, who I'm sure if you're an anime fan you'll recognize his name. He wrote and directed Digimon Data Savers. He's been involved in all kinds of anime, and he and I have been great friends for years and years. And the part came up, and he just figured it was something that I could do, and so he just kind of had me come in and do it. The great thing about Pesce was that I didn't have to match the mouth movements at all because he always wears a mask. And if you know anything about the anime world in Japan, they write a story and then they animate that story, and then the voice actors come in afterwards and they write their dialogue and add the dialogue. So the Japanese don't care that the mouth movements of the cartoon character match the dialogue that the actor is saying. But obviously here in America, we do it reverse. We record first and then animate to the mouth so it looks like someone's talking. So when you do ADR for anime, the idea is to match the mouth movement. So every time the mouth opens and closes, you're saying another syllable or another word, and it matches closely. And sometimes it can be kind of hard because you have to match what's written and whatnot. Pesce was so easy because he wore a mask. I could do whatever I wanted. It was great.
Well, that is so fascinating. I didn't realize that the Japanese did it in a completely different order when they actually made their animations.
Yeah, they do it reverse, which is interesting. And to Japanese audiences, they don't care if it matches or not. And actually, if you watch anime in original Japanese, it doesn't match. They don't care. They don't care.
So fascinating how our cultures are both just so different.
Yeah. It's really fascinating.
Well, when you were working on the show Bleach, how closely did you work with Johnny Young Bosch, or did y'all work together?
No, in fact, I've never met Johnny, and I know of him. I'm sure we've said hello because we've been at the studio together probably several times, but we don't really know each other. And then I looked him up on IMDb too, and our paths have crossed in a couple of different shows. But the difference too with how they record anime is it is character by character. So when you're doing anime, you just go in. It's just you and the director and the audio engineer, and they say, okay, line 52. Then you watch it, and then you say line 52, and then they go, great, line 54, and you move on. So you're never actually working with other actors. So it's very, very rare that you know the cat. And there's people that I run into all the time like, hey, we worked together. Well, we didn't really work together, but we're in the same show. So it's cool. I mean, it's unfortunate because you kind of miss playing off the other actor, but it's for ease of recording because you have to match the mouth movements and stuff. It would be impossible to record it the same way or they record American cartoons.
Absolutely. That totally makes sense. Well, you know, as far as your involvement with Naruto, I know that you were in that show as well, and that's a big following.
Yes, it
and
is.
I know that you played two particular characters. I know you've played several from doing my research, but I know you played Awashi Tatami and Minoji.
Yes, I think Iwashi appears in a lot more episodes. But the funny thing was with that was that I did Iwashi first, and he's kind of is described as sort of like an older brother, cool guy, tough guy, and so I kind of did this voice where he's really serious all the time and talking like this, and then a few years go by, and Iwashi hadn't appeared in a bunch of episodes, and they said, hey, we got this other character, why don't you come in and do it? I said, great. So they showed me another character, and I start talking like this, and I do the same thing, and I, they're 2 years apart. I don't remember what I did. So about 6 months ago, both characters, and they should start airing soon, but both characters have come back, and they're both in the same episode. And so they said, okay, here's Iwashi in case you don't remember, and it was, hey, what's going on? This is Iwashi, and I went, okay, and then I recorded my lines, and then they played the other character, and it was the exact same voice.
Wow.
And I went, sorry guys, no one told me. So I luckily they weren't in the same scene, but I went, I guess I don't have a lot of range with this character. Sorry guys.
Wow.
Too bad.
That is, yeah. So they don't actually have somebody that analyzes the sound and kind of says, hey, we need to change this up a little bit, or?
Well, I think because it was literally it was 2 or 3 years apart between the two characters that nobody had figured. Well, who cares? It's Iwashi hadn't appeared in a show in so long. They just figured he was gone, and this new character's like, great, do this character. But we never went back to find out what I did with the old character because we figured he would never come back. So.
Wild times. Bet you it brings a lot of laughter to you when you think about it.
It's funny, but it's one of those things where you go, you don't realize what voice you're doing for what character. In fact, there's a lot of times now when I go in and audition for things, and this is luckily because knock on wood, we get a lot of auditions, and you just pump them out, that when they call and say, hey, you booked this thing, I go, great, I have no idea what I did, can you email me the audition that I recorded, because I don't know what my tone was, I don't know what the audition was for. So luckily I keep archives. If I audition for it at home, I have my home studio set up so I can go back and listen, or the agency or whoever, if it's at a studio, they can audition, email you the audition and go, yeah, this is what you did. So otherwise you're walking in blind.
Which I'm sure that makes it really challenging when you're walking into something that you're like, wait, what did I audition for?
Yeah, and I've got my wife could attest to this. I've got a horrible memory, so I could audition for it yesterday and go, what did I book? I don't even remember that.
Hey, Mike, I know you've been involved with a lot of animation, but I also know you've been involved with some video games, especially Final Fantasy XIV. Are you much of a gamer yourself?
I used to be when I was single. I played. I didn't do a lot of like Call of Duty and Final Fantasy games. I don't know. These are probably 10 years old now. But do you remember Baldur's Gate or Champions of Norrath? They're like first player RPG games, and those I loved Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. So I myself and my old roommate before we both got married, we would just sit around. Like, you got any auditions today? No, great. Let's order pizza and play this video game for 12 hours. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, but eventually life gets in the way, and you kind of go, well, I need to be more productive and actually have a career and not just. I love video games, so I could easily fall back into it. And Final Fantasy, I've played. I never actually heard myself on Final Fantasy. I tried to YouTube clips of the character, but I never heard it. But Jamie Montellaro, who is the director of that video game series, is another good friend and a guy that hires me a lot for various video games and whatnot. And again, just called me in and said, hey, audition for these characters and hopefully we can get you some work, and I got the sprite.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool, and it's just really fun to create a character from the ground up. I don't think we had a voice match for that of any particular sound that they were looking for. They just said, he's a young sort of sprite-like character, and what do you got? And I made it up.
Well, that's amazing, to hear that you've been in so many diverse works. When you got into voiceover work, Mike, did you ever imagine the diverse ways in which your voice might end up being used one day?
No, at the time when I first started, it was just part of what you did as an actor. I did on camera, I did plays, I did, when you're in Chicago specifically, it's a great place to, I think, well, at the time, this was 20 years ago too, but it was a great place to start as an actor because there's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of diverse types of work. There's voiceover, there's on camera, they do commercials, they shoot obviously a lot of series there now with all the Chicago fires and Chicago PDs and all that. But there's also industrial films where you're like corporate training videos, and there's plays, and there's live convention work and all that. So when I first started acting and started making a living, voiceover was just one of those things that you go and, okay, now today I audition for voiceover, and if I book it, great. And in Chicago, it was really just commercial work. It was commercial auditions and radio commercials, television commercials, and that's about it. And I did pretty good there for about 10 years, and eventually I realized I hated winter and needed to get out. I actually went to Australia. I had a friend that was living in Australia, and I went down there over the holidays for a couple weeks just to get out of winter, and it was summer down there, and it was fantastic. And I remember flying back to Chicago. The next day I got back, it was like 20 below and snowing, and I'm shoveling snow, and I realized I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I gotta get out of here. And so I just started making arrangements to come back to LA. And then once you come out here, there's just so much more work and so many different and varying kinds of work. I'd done 1 or 2 video games in Chicago. There's a couple producers out there that do games, but for the most part, everything else that you do out here there's just so much more. There's anime, there's animation, there's video games. Now it's even expanded even more because there's websites and website video and online content and promo work, and it's 10 times the amount of work and different kinds of work. I mean, I've animated a piece of pie. I've been a fish. I've been, I've been an announcer on radio commercials. Just the scope and strangeness of the voices that you end up doing. And at the end of the day, you're like, wow, that's some weird stuff.
Well, it sounds like you've done a massively diverse, from one end to the other, all kinds of different voices,
Yeah, it's fun. For the most part, it's commercial work. It's just that's what the most work. Although video games are really coming up to match the amount of work, but commercially, there's still a lot of work for announcers or dopey husband #1 and idiot neighbor. That's me usually. Typecasting, but it's there's so much work that thankfully you audition hopefully every day, and with a lot of different scripts, and then they call your name and number and put you to work. So
that's excellent to hear. How all that diversity works together. What advice would you give, Mike, to someone who's potentially interested in pursuing a career in voiceover?
The biggest thing that I would say, and the biggest skill that you're going to use is to take improv classes. I mean, for sure, you certainly have to take voiceover classes to learn, just how to stand in front of a mic, how to read copy, and all of that kind of stuff. But I would say a more important than even all of that is to be able to improvise. And it's a skill that every single actor should have. I think it's a skill every human being should have. I mean, I've taught improv here and there, and I've had lawyers and doctors and scientists and just people who want to learn to speak better and think quicker on their feet. Improvisation and learning improv is the absolute best skill for that. A lot of what you do in voiceover is repetition. You're going to read, right now at McDonald's, get a Big Mac for 99 cents. And they're going to say, be happier, be more serious, be more conversational, be more this, be more that. If you can think on your feet quickly and instantly give them a new version of that's happier or more conversational or whatever they're looking for, you're going to be someone who's really easy to work with and somebody who's directable. And that skill is improvisation. I love it. I love improv. I've done it for years and years and years. It's so much fun. It's great to get laughs, but it's also just great when you you have that skill and that ability. And if they say, give us something unique and different, and your mind just creates it, because it's as anything, being able to audition is a skill, but being able to improvise is a skill, and it's something that you can exercise and use and be better at. And if you haven't done it in a long time and they say go ahead and do it, you're not going to be great at it. It's something you've got to do often to be able to keep up that skill.
I find it fascinating to learn that, voiceover has such a diversity, and, there are just so many different ways to approach it. But improv is definitely something that maybe by bringing that improv to the table, you're bringing something that the producers and directors and everybody weren't expecting, and that then they find that voice they were looking for because it just wasn't anything they were thinking of until they heard it. And then they were like, bam, that's it.
That's pretty much how it goes. Yeah. I mean, it's not, I think so many people, when they think of voiceover, they think of Don LaFontaine, in a world, and all that kind of stuff, or they just think of cartoon characters. And there's so many other jobs and avenues and ways to use this, audio books and all that kind of stuff too, that you're going to need to learn, because when you read an audiobook, you have to come up with a voice for all the characters that are in that audiobook. So, being able to improvise and come up with characters and different voices and distinct voices is something that's paramount to being able to do that. And it's not something, I know a lot of people go, I have a cool voice. People tell me I have a great voice. I'm going to do voiceover. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
It's great. If you look, I hate the sound of my voice sometimes. I really do. I spent 20 minutes today editing and re-editing an audition. I finally had to put it aside, and I'm going to do it later, because I kept going down a wormhole like, God, this is terrible. This is awful. I sound awful. But that's not what matters. What matters is how you read it, how you interpret it, the actual quality of your read. Does it sound good? Does your studio sound good? Does your audition sound right? And ultimately, look, your voice is your voice. So if they don't hire you, it's because they don't want your voice, and that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next guy will, but the ability to be able to come up with multiple voices and multiple characters is fantastic for animation, and it's a skill you should absolutely learn and absolutely have and be able to do. But in order to work regularly, you have to be able to use your own voice well. And that's improvising as well. That's being able to sound really, really happy, or really, really sad, or really stupid, or whatever. And just be able to do it quickly and easily and effortlessly. And that's where the improv comes in.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for sharing your advice with those who might be interested in pursuing a voiceover career, or just those who wanted to learn something new today. Are you working on any current projects, anything up and coming that you're able to share with us today?
Yeah, actually, starting this fall, it'll be check local listings, 'cause I'm not sure where. I'm narrating a new show called People Behaving Badly, and like I said, I wish I knew what stations it would be on where, but it's all local stations. So check those local listings. And then in January, a new show on HGTV is called Beach Hunters. And it's kind of like House Hunters, but it's always on the beach. So people looking for beach houses. So we're going to do a couple episodes of that, and if it goes well, hopefully that'll be stretched out into a bigger series as well. So those are a couple of new things I'm working on right now.
Well, absolutely. I will definitely pass that on to my wife, because we both love watching HGTV.
Isn't it great? Yeah, my wife and I actually did an episode of House Hunters years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
You can look that up. So Right and So Cal was the name of our thing, and it was just really fun. It's a total blast to be on that show. It really is.
So energetic and exciting, and you're learning all kinds of stuff. You're like, whoa, what?
Yeah, it's really a cool thing. And so I watched that show too, so it was neat when the narration, the audition came in, and I'm like, well, I know how to do this. Watch that show all the time. I could do this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're like, I got this.
I got it. Don't worry about it.
No worries. I got this. Step aside. Well, Mike, do you have a website or a way in which people can contact you if they should require your voiceover services or talents?
Yeah. You can go to michaelpgreco.com. That's the website. It's got all my contact information and email and everything else. And, in Los Angeles, contact Eric C. Strand at WME and tell them they want me.
Well, I've got a couple of extra questions for you, and then we'll close out today. What is your favorite cartoon character, Mike, and why?
Okay, so it's never. I should say he has never been animated. He was only in a serial, and it's Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. If you're familiar with that, it God, I think he stopped actually even doing the strip probably 20 years ago. But look it up. It's his Calvin and his pet stuffed tiger Hobbes. It was my all-time favorite character. I actually have Calvin tattooed on my arm, and the main reason is he's a precocious little 6-year-old, and but he's got an intelligence and a wit about him to not take life seriously, and that was my whole. Actually, the reason I got him tattooed was there's periods in your life where you just get a little too serious about things, and there's no reason to. So it's just a reminder to just not take life seriously.
Excellent, man. That's a great reminder for people to think about.
Yeah.
And Mike, what is your favorite Disney movie and why?
Growing up, I probably watched the original Jungle Book, the animated one, a zillion times. For whatever reason, that kid walking around the jungle and singing and talking to the animals, just it got me. I don't even know what it is that as it made me love it so much as a kid, other than I was just fascinated by it. I just thought it was so cool to be able to talk to a bear and talk to a lion, a snake, and the whole thing. And so yeah, that was my favorite by far, the original Jungle Book. And actually at Disneyland, it's my favorite ride is that Jungle Book cruise ride, which has nothing to do with the movie, but it's still my favorite ride.
Well, hey, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Would you mind closing us out today, maybe as Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern?
Absolutely. Hey, this is Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern, and you've just been listening to Who Did That Voice?
Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. We'll see you next Friday with our next special guest, Phil Lawler. Hey, are you ready to win some awesome prizes? Each week, one lucky listener will have the chance to become the winner of our giveaway. All you have to do is like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter. Enter hashtag plus the special word of the week for your chance to win. Today's special word of the week is hashtag Green Lantern.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.